Coming to the first chairman of today's program, I'd now like to introduce Mr. Ian Moore. Ian is the Chief Executive Officer of the Fire Industry Association, or FIA, which with over 950 member companies is also Europe's largest trade association for the fire protection industry, promoting professional standards and training thousands of students every year. With an international working background, Ian is no stranger to the Middle East. He has held roles in Libya, the UAE and Oman, in the private as well as the military sector. Ian will moderate the first panel and guide you through the following program. Ian, if I can ask you to switch on your camera and take the stage. Thank you. There you are.
Good. Well, thank you, Philip. Nice introduction. I sound quite good when you talk it that way. Well, good morning, or Masah khair, depends on where you are in the world at the moment. As Philip said, my name is Ian Moore and I'm the CEO of the Fire Industry Association based in the UK. I'm going to be chairing this session. It's 1 hour and you'll be glad to know mine is only 15 minutes as introduction. And then we'll be talking to two others, which I'll introduce in a moment. This session on the Global Approach to Fire Safety Conference is based on active fire protection systems within the built environment. So I'm going to talk to you for 15 minutes on raising the bar about competence for building a safer future. This is based on the works post the Grenfell Tower tragedy, so very relevant right now. I'm going to be followed then by Phil Witts, who's the CEO of RTs, looking at smarter connectivity safety systems. Then we'll have 15 minutes from Ed Barnes, CTO of React on Fire Systems, looking at understanding localized building fire suppression. At the end of this, we'll take question and answers. So we'll allow the people to do their presentations, and then we'll have 15 minutes at the end to cover Q&A. And as Philip quite rightly said, there is a chat function you see on your screen. I'll be monitoring those, and I'll be asking the questions to the relevant people at the end of the time. Okay, let me share my screen, if I may. And there we go. Okay. Let's try and move that out of the way. Okay. So let's get on the right slide. Okay, here we go. So basically raising the bar, this is about competence for building a safety future. A little bit about the FIA, very, very quickly. It's actually 1,000 companies now, so we've grown a little bit since Philip and I started discussing this. We're a not-for-profit organization, which basically means that we can always be righteous and stand on the pedestal doing the right things because there are no shareholders. We're owned by the membership. We are a major provider of fire safety. We train in the region of 5,000 to 6,000 people a year. Not only train them, but also examine them afterwards, which is quite an important factor in line with competency. What we do is we represent our members to promote and help shape legislation. So we sit on virtually every British standard to do with fire safety. We contribute towards ISO, EN, our secretariat sit on the as chair of different sections within Euralarm as well. So very much a European-based organization. We provide full technical support. We have 3 technical managers, extremely high profile, and what they don't know is not worth knowing in our industry, that's for sure. We also help our members by leading overseas trade missions. We've done a few around the world like Brazil, South Africa, but we also have partners we work with in different countries, as in UAE is another example, we're quite close to try and help where we can. We insist on every one of our members having third-party certification. And again, moving on that competency theme, it is the only way we can find to actually define a company being competent at the moment. So that's what we insist upon. So all of our members are, as it says at the start, they're professional companies. We have anywhere between 100 to 200 working groups at any particular time, so we can focus. And these are things like legislation, best practice guides, whether that be British, European, or international. We have a working group put together from a number of stakeholders, not just members. We use government people, the National Fire Chiefs Council, who represent the fire and rescue services, a bit of everything. And when I say we're not for profit, we actually reinvest any profit, because we do make profit. We reinvest that into research projects. And these can be any number of areas, but we work on things like false alarm reduction, looking at statistics to do with fire deaths in different scenarios, and some also financial areas as well to help out members and public. So it's quite far-reaching. The latest one we put together, which has been going now for about 3 or 4 months, is a building safety information portal. This was originally at the behest of government, and this will store information on an accessible portal which we run. This was driven by what was called EWS1 forms. In UK, you'll know that name. This is external wall system, and for us mere mortals, it's basically cladding. There's been a huge problem, obviously, with cladding post Grenfell, but the people owning flats or trying to buy or have mortgages are really struggling because they need to have some certification to say the value of their flat based on the cladding itself. So we put these onto our website, they upload them, various engineers, but again, they have to be competent in the right fields, they upload the forms. But we're also extending this into other areas like information to do with things like premises information boxes, anything to do with safety. So freely accessible from the public, that's the whole idea of it, so they can check, and in the future we may well lodge even risk assessments. Probably the actual person who did the risk assessment, not the risk assessment itself, because that is confidentially owned by the responsible person in the building. Okay. Very quickly, always conscious of time. Events affecting change. I think the 3 key incidents really give us a nice step on this. London fire, the Great Fire of London. I think everybody's children in our schools will know about this. And 6 people died in that, believe it or not, even though it destroyed virtually the whole of London. Started in Pudding Lane in a baker's shop, as we all know from our history. But what happened on that? The Rebuilding Act in 1667 basically said that no upper floors are to protrude, all buildings are to be made of stone and not wood. The fire hydrant system was installed. They had a basic one already, but it was made of wood. Even the first insurance company in the world was born from this as well, called the Fire Office. So those changes happened based on an effect. Lakenhall House, 2009, was a cladding fire. 6 people died. The government at the time said it was the worst tower block fire in history, since obviously World War II. And what did they do about it? They said, we're going to go down these complete changes, but all they did was really clarify. There were some minor changes, but a clarification of the standards and the acts, etc. But unfortunately, 2017, Grenfell, I think the whole world saw what happened there. You had some similar incidents, I know, in Dubai with the address, etc., but not to that scale of the death rate. It was quite horrific. And I think it was life-changing, not only for the building, people in the building, but all of us working in the industry. It was absolutely shocking. So a whole raft of changes happened, and we put together a lot of things. And I think the driving force out of all this is really about competency, realizing that people were doing jobs in those buildings without any qualifications, without any checks being done. So basically, we then ended up with these 4 different things we looked at post Grenfell. We talked about cultural change. We had a review done by a lady called Dame Judith Hackett, and what we found also, we had to be very careful. We didn't want to distort the statistics. We had a trend coming down and down and down year after year, specifically in tower blocks. And of course, you get this blip, and we have to be aware of the fact that we were extremely safe before that, and we are extremely safe subsequent to that. But we cannot afford to have that blip with a catastrophic event. So although being conscious of change, we have to be also conscious that we were doing the right things predominantly already. We need to change public confidence and the confidence of living in a building. We need to make sure that people feel safe. We talk about stay put policies. We need to make sure that people are very happy doing so. So we have to prove to them. We also have to prove to the fire and rescue services as well that they're not going to another false alarm. So a lot of confidence across the board needs to be put back, and our industry took a big knock. And what's happened, virtually all of this, is this demand for competency in every area. So how do we define competency? It's all well and good saying, I'm competent, I could do this, I can do that. You have to be able to define it and then prove it. And in that report I talked about, it was put together by Dame Judith Hackett, the word competence was used 152 times. So that was clearly the underlying problem for how do you define it. I'm conscious again of time, so I need to move along a little bit with this. So the bottom statement is the most surprising. Even in UK, which you think would be high level and high standards, which we like to think we are, there is no requirement for somebody to have any qualifications to work in fire safety. Wholly unacceptable, and we're working extremely hard to change that. Now, there are fines in place. I mean, these are some of the examples. So apart from the risk to life, there is also financial damages sent out quite often. So people are regularly getting this wrong. So how do we define competency? There's a number of ways. We can get listed on a register. For instance, fire risk assessors will be put on there. You can look at references, reputation, experience. Well, this is the same for any work being done in any form of construction anyway. Then we talk about personal qualifications. What are we going to do about that? Company certification. I've already alluded to third-party certification. And I think we all know about product compliance to make sure it's third-party approved, to ensure it works in line with the national codes. This is what we've done. Personally, in the FIA, we've put ourselves up as an awarding organisation. So these are nationally recognised qualifications now. And this particular one is in fire detection alarm systems, but there are a number of others coming along as well. But we focused on specific things like design, install, commissioning, maintenance, to make sure it's absolutely relevant. Part of the working groups that came out of Grenfell, we looked at what does good actually look like. So we looked to define company certification, personal qualifications, then how do we register that competence, and then how do we actually deliver training to bring you to that level. And this is an example, for instance, of fire detection and alarm, and this is what these working groups have been working at. So we see there are levels to work to with LPCB and BAFE. Then we talk about personal qualifications of apprenticeships or our training that come to a certain level. Then we have cards that prove this, the CSCS cards or a qualification card. We're pushing hard towards having basically a driving license with the letters on the back that talk about the different disciplines you can have, like extinguishing systems or gaseous systems or emergency lighting, not just a one-size-fits-all, which is what we've been damaged from before. And there's a number of trainers now. There's a lot of very viable companies coming along now that give very, very professional training. So all of these schemes are in place. They're ready to go. It's about a matter of concluding that our government will not mandate anything. So we have to, as an industry, look after each other and raise our bar of professionalism. So we need to insist on people insisting on competence. Okay, that's a general guide, and I wanted to be pretty quick about that because I'm trying to keep on time, and I'm bang on time at 11:15. So Philip, I'm good to hand over whenever you are, and I'll introduce the next person, which I can do in a second. So let me stop sharing.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Ian. If you just proceed.
Okay, I will continue. Fine. Okay, the